な男を見かけなかった？さっきの回を見ていきましたよ。女性と一緒に。
Lady, I keep trying to tell you that was just Ron Perlman and his date. Also, he looks more like an ape than a monkey. We opened this one surprisingly a little different, with us actually seeing the girls making their way to school. Though we then got an all too familiar sight of Momoko looking for a new senpai to hunt. Yeah, I think even Doremi is saying you should dial it back just a little there, Momoko. Granted, part of that might have been because there seemed to be no catches in their class, in particular one obnoxious little prankster named Sakamoto. I've heard worse. I swear, that guy better turn out to be the villain just so I don't have to listen to that laugh anymore. But yeah, he had pulled pranks on both Miyako and Kaoru, and as much as I would have liked to see this version of Bubbles go 11 on him, he of course got his comeuppance from the latter. Like she does it better than Jericho these days. Though he got the worst of it when he tried to prank Kimiko, and while her initial response seemed kinda natural to one of the oldest tricks in the book, don't you dare join in! However, for some reason, he had seemed to prank all of the girls in their class, with the exception of Momoko. Understandably, she had figured that he had been pranking all of them as a sign of affection, as that is kind of a thing when a kid is in a total sociopath. Thus, she figured that Sakamoto didn't like her for some reason, and tried to confront him over it. Stay, Anya, stay. And not too surprisingly, he revealed the reason he hadn't pranked Momoko was because he had an actual crush on her and didn't know how to approach her. This did end up matching up with some of their previous interactions, and I gotta give it to the show for not going as over the top as it could and is about to get. This is a fairly believable depiction of young love, so points for subtlety and nice direction. But enough of that mushy stuff, time for some action. Same. Oh come on, it's just gonna happen when you get older, okay? And on the subject of clogged arteries, as it turned out, the reason Mojo was attacking stemmed from a trip to the copyright-safe burger restaurant, even though Ronald has already appeared in the show. Gentle? They tried to fight the evil monkey, but Momoko was a little too distracted by her sudden new crush. Fortunately, I guess Mojo was piloting one of those impossible burger mechs, and her team just kind of beat him.
Barely an inconvenience.
Still, the prof tried to consult his kind of sort of pupil, and definitely not daughter in this universe, and yet we ended up repeating this joke.
Urge to kill rising.
If anything, you gotta feel bad for Ken through all of this. Anyway, Momoko did end up sharing an admittedly cute lunch with Sakamoto, and this continued into the classroom where, after fantasizing with some more of that orgasming orchestra, she invited her new beau to walk home with her. However, that would have to wait, as the girls had cleaning duty. She did try to shortcut her way through it by transforming, but 1, I don't think Momoko has the dexterity of OG Blossom, and 2, secret identities and all that. However, she still managed to kind of unintentionally worm her way out when Miyako and Kaoru couldn't take any more of her nonsense. However, they were once again interrupted by Mojo with a powered-up mech, in that it was... Well, points to the monkey for realizing that Milbun is kind of pointless. The power cleaning girls went ahead, while Momoko tried to make excuses to both the prof, now in full surrogate dad mode, and then Sakamoto when she couldn't weasel her way out of saving the day. As a result, the former two reached Mojo first and tried to reason with him.
になっちゃうぞ。
Hey look, a toy anime that actually discourages diabetes. Ultimately, they could reason with the hungry monkey and his spud addictions, which, yeah, I gotta admit, Mojo has been the best part of this otherwise uneventful episode, as well as the most relatable. I mean, come on, we all love fries. And in fact, Momoko decided to comply with his wishes and just give him an Idaho's worth of fried potatoes to send him off. With that, the day was saved, but not so much the prof's sanity.
ユートニウム博士。テンション下がるわ。
I'm sorry, could you play that again?
テンション下がるわ。
Okay, am I the only one kinda freaked out when I hear Gurako talk normal? Later, Momoko reunited with Sakamoto, who, after being stood up for a bit of a while, did end up developing a little more familiarity with the girl, to the point he was confident enough to show some of his more true affections to her. With that, the episode ended, along with likely this relationship.
Well, that was pointless.
Yeah, honestly, this wasn't a bad episode or anything. I mean, again, the stuff with Momoko and Sakamoto was cute enough until the end, and Momoko and his fry antics were fun, but it also wasn't the most entertaining episode of the series, with Momoko just mostly swooning over this kid. More importantly, as you can probably see, we're not gonna hit the 8-minute mark, so hell of it, bonus double review. And appropriately enough, this episode opened on Momoko returning from a date.
また振られたんじゃねえか。そんなのどうだっていいでしょ。
Let me guess, want too many stink bugs? Alright, in actuality, I'd imagine the two broke up at the end of the last episode, but I also like to think that this is taking place shortly after that, as Momoko's unrequited romance likely would have added to her frustrations with her teammates disrespecting her and not treating her as their leader. As a result, she snapped and was going to do the standard running away from home thing, even though the lab wasn't her home. Again, why do y'all keep forgetting that this dude ain't their dad in this universe? Meanwhile, some him particles made their way to an Italian restaurant, though this lady did agree with that.
スパゲッティナポリタン、イタリア料理じゃん。
違うわよ、何も知らないのな。
So yeah, a little context. Napoleon is indeed not a traditional Italian dish, but rather a yoshiku, a fusion dish between Japanese and Western cuisines. Allegedly, it was created shortly after the Second World War by Shigetada Iie, the general chef at the New Grand Hotel in Yokohama at the time. In some ways, it is kinda meant to emulate the traditional red sauce pasta, but was made with the limited ingredients the country had after losing a war, which included bacon, sausage, mushrooms, peppers, and ketchup as the sauce. Now, that last ingredient might sound a little weird or even gross to some, but one, the dish is still very popular to this day, so it has to taste a little good, and two, it was supposedly inspired by the pasta dishes that the American soldiers were eating, which were likely Chef Boyardee rations, so yeah, I think he made the better dish. Anyway, the reason I brought all this up was because while the particles tried to go for the Karen, they instead got the pasta. And having realized he wasn't an actual Italian dish, the Napoleon had a bit of an existential crisis. He tried to consult with some of his fellow noodles by talking with some meat sauce that he also thought was a yoshoku, but as this equally swirly-haired dude pointed out, meat sauce, or bolognese, is actually a product of Bologna in northern Italy. Now, this is interesting subject matter that Delicious Party could cover. The history of certain dishes, and whether or not they should be considered as a part of that country's cuisine. When you get down to it, there are a lot of fusion cuisines out there with debatable origins based on how much influence it borrowed from its sources. Like, even if it is made with ketchup, Napoleon is still clearly based off of red sauces, so you could say it's just a different interpretation of the Italian recipe, which in of itself wasn't even the first tomato sauce to be published about, as a Franciscan friar from Spain seems to hold that honor. Same can be said for a lot of the food fairies in DP that are actually yoshoku, making for an interesting little thought experiment, and hell, maybe an allegory for other cultural themes, as even here, Napoleon suffered discrimination for being a lowly ketchup-based pasta by his own creators. Now, honestly, I kind of doubt the show would do this sort of story, but maybe the Kamikita Futago's manga might do it, because this seems like the kind of subject matter that they would devour. Anyway, Napoleon's little identity crisis ended up alerting the girls, which led to all of their deployment, but of course Momoko interpreted this as her team needing her again. They rightfully popped her bubble, leading her to continue her pseudo-runaway, eventually into an actual vagrant. Feeling sympathy for the life-size food fairy, she decided to help him start a new life in the faraway land of Argentina. Oh goody, maybe you could join in on that crypto boom. However, having seen her interactions with her teammates, and the clear fact that she still had a connection to the city, Napoleon literally pushed her away and assured her that she still had a place there, mending a simple yet really touching little tale about a misplaced plate of pasta. Oh, and also, for some reason, Noodler was also on the boat. Like, did he have a falling out with his creator, or is he going out to find some more recipes for him? I honestly kind of want a spin-off with these two, and maybe even Ron. Last up on the docket is a Keane-sensei dating episode. Because it wouldn't be a PPG show if Keane didn't go on a date from hell. And of course, in Japan, they have to go with the furry. I mean, okay, to be fair, this is calling back to a previous Keane-centric episode, mostly because this episode was written by the same person, Yoichi Takahashi, who is going to make another callback by the end of this. But for now, Mojo managed to convince the easygoing sensei to go out on a little date with him, though she didn't exactly interpret it as such. Still, he was putting in a solid effort, including having his VA putting on a significantly different voice, as well as paying for the movie ticket.
3600円です。
So yeah, you might think that's some sort of exaggerated price, like maybe the joke is that they overcharge for monkeys, but no, apparently that's the average price for a couple of adults in Japan. Yeah, if any of your friends complain about the prices at IMAX, show them this. They then made their way onto the beach.
魔女
ほらカニさん可愛いでしょ
That's debatable. And lastly, they went to a fancy restaurant where, unfortunately for everyone there, they had an open piano. All the while, they had unknowingly left a trail of breadcrumbs for the girls to follow, and also conveniently get the wrong idea each time. Granted, Mojo's last attempt at winning Sensei's heart was a little kinky, but thankfully we didn't get the predictable ending where the girls would crash the date because of a lot of little misunderstandings. Nope, instead we got something a lot funnier, as after a nicely done little romantic scene between the two with some more of that damn music, Mojo gave Keane-sensei a love letter, and in exchange he got an A for being a good student. And as if being student zone wasn't bad enough,
こちら先生のボーイフレンドで地底人の上の
So yeah, this version of Keane makes the president her bitch, can defeat Mojo single-handedly, and is dating one of the mole people. What more needs to be said? With that, the episode ended with the girls telling Mojo to grow a pair, though honestly, I don't think Momoko has any right to criticize since the monkey got the better rom-com episode than her. So yeah, I honestly did not plan to do another review and just kind of did this on a whim, but I think it might have been for the better because these two episodes surprisingly blended pretty well. I mean, not only did they both give us some rom-coms, but they both kind of highlighted Momoko, and to a slightly lesser degree, Mojo. Both characters managed to show off some of the better aspects, making for a rather entertaining little romp. And we even ended up with a little bit of a delicious party theme. God, I just love how this stuff works out. I think what makes Momoko one of the more interesting self-appointed magical girl leaders is the fact that she does act a little bit more like a girl of her age. Sure, the boy craziness is a little exaggerated, but really, any kids of her age can be impulsive and pretty damn selfish, which she certainly is. And yet, what makes her different is that she can also be very empathetic. While not always doing it with the best of intentions, she does try to hear the other side of the story and learn why someone acts the way they do. It certainly doesn't make her a goody two-shoes like some of her distant cousins, but it does make her an effective lead who needs to grow a little. And these two episodes featuring a couple of bad boys best highlight this by showing how she does try to accommodate to a certain point. As a result, both boys were able to become more open, and even if one of them was arguably not for the better, it does at least show that Momoko is an active character. Same can be kinda said for the other star of these episodes, Mojo, who was just plain entertaining for how far he was willing to take things. From missing a single french fry to dating Keane-sensei, he always tries to incorporate a giant mech, which is both hilarious and kind of admirable. And I'm actually kind of glad he got his fries, even though they're probably going to go to his thighs. And on top of that, another rather deep monster tale about fusion cuisine trying to find his place in the world. Again, I think this would actually make a great episode for Delicious Party. Then, yeah, you get a pair of episodes that surprisingly complement each other, or at least make the former feel less pointless because of that ending. Still, if you want some more of our thoughts regarding the current Precursor season, do check out our weekly reviews of it. And along with that, do check out the Battle Spirits video that we're also hoping to release this week, depending if I can find the time to do some last recordings. We'll see. Still, until then though, farewell for now, my friends, and excuse me. Yes? No, you want to borrow some ketchup? Okay, here you go. Why are you putting it in your hair?